You are listening to Girls, Ghosts, Ghouls, a podcast where three women discuss horror movies from the silent era through the 1970s. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Spotify, and Anchor. Timely, topical, terrifying. Well, hello, we're back with another episode of our Poe-stravaganza. This one is The Telltale Heart. And we couldn't make up our minds about which movie of The Telltale Heart to pair it with because there was a couple options, but some of them were like 8 to 10 minutes, and we probably should have gone with those, but we didn't. Instead, we went with The Telltale Heart 1934, which is also known strangely as The Bucket of Blood for reasons I was not able to discern. And then The Telltale Heart 1960 something. And yeah, 64. Thank you. And
I saw
there's no
62.
big names associated with either of these that made it through the test of time. They might have been big in their day, but there's no
But
interesting trivia about either of them.
not particularly. The director of the 1934 movie, I was able to find like a tiny little bit of
Yeah,
information
Brian
on
Desmond
him.
Hurst.
Yeah, and like he did a little bit of work, but nothing hugely remarkable. Only thing I found interesting is that in World War One, he was on the campaigns on Gallipoli, which went fantastically bad for the Allies. But that's all I
I mean,
got.
that can explain why this movie wasn't that great. So
Yeah.
the 1934 one, I will say this: it is the truest to the actual Poe short story.
Yes.
Which,
However, as we discovered in Jesus Christ, I'm already blanking it out. Which one? The adherence to the source material does not a good movie make.
No,
exactly.
it was the black cat. It was
Thank
the
you.
black cat.
Okay.
Yes. Just because it adheres to the story doesn't make it a good film.
No. The
But
most.
it wasn't awful. It just wasn't interesting.
No,
No.
it was. The director needed to decide: am I making a silent film or am I making a talkie? Because even for a silent movie, there are way more intertitles than there was dialogue in this film. Oh, uh, so yeah, it's an almost silent movie without intertitles.
Yeah, a lot of ranting, just a lot of ranting.
A
And
lot
then a
of
weird
ranting.
random scene with a woman in a beautiful gauzy dress and in the forest that had nothing really to do with anything. But it
No.
was pretty.
There was so much about it that I was like, oh, okay. Oh, okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah, because there wasn't a lot that was happening. And granted, in the original source material, there's not a lot in that either, but you're getting narration, you're getting feelings from the author, you're getting something. This, you got nothing. You got Mr. Ball of Anxiety, neuroses there, just having trouble with real life, apparently. And he does okay when he's not speaking. When you're
His
your main
face is
actor.
very emotive face.
Yes,
Very emotive face.
he was a great job on expressions and this and that, and he portrayed, the insanity well. But for God's sakes, he just needed to shut the hell up. Maybe it's good that there wasn't a lot of dialogue.
It's true.
Well, yeah, and I guess for those of you who aren't familiar with the tale of the Telltale Heart, basically the Poe story is that this guy really despises his neighbor because the guy has a creepy, milked over, diseased, dead blue eye, and he obsesses over it. And so he just basically spends time slowly creeping the door open to this guy's room and like making sure he doesn't wake up. And then until the one day where he does get the guy to sort of wake up, the one pale blue eye, and then he jumps on the bed and kills the guy, basically chops him up, buries him under the floorboards. But the guy screams before that happens, so the neighbors call the cops. By the time the cops get there, the man's already buried under the floorboards. And you have this nice thing where like the killer is like, I'm so smart, I'm getting away with this. They know nothing. The guy left, he's off visiting, relatives or some shit. You'll never, and in his brain, his inner dialogue is, they'll never catch me. I'm so smart. I'm not insane. I'm not insane because I'm
Yep.
getting away with this. Until he starts hearing the heart and loses his shit.
And in as similar in the Black Cat, he invites the officers in, and they're sitting talking as his chair is on top of where the body is hidden, and then the mental illness ensues.
And then he gives himself away and basically goes,
Yep.
I know you hear it. And it's like, it's right under your feet. And basically that's how he gets caught. And like I said, the 1934 movie pretty much follows it to the T,
Yeah.
except for in a way it makes it worse. Cause like in the written version, it's just the guy doesn't like him because there's no real connection between the old man and him. But in this movie, they make this old man like a caretaker for him. So the guy like nurses him through a sickness and everything, and still this guy's just fixated on this eye and decides he needs to kill him anyway, despite this old man's kindness to him. So it's kind of more tragic.
I think so. I think that's a fair statement.
It's a fair statement. Yeah, because it is. It's kind of worse.
Like, it's one thing, I mean, I'm not advocating killing random people because their appearance bothers you, but there's a slight difference to me emotively if it's just somebody who lives nearby that you don't interact with much versus somebody who's like made sure that you didn't die.
That's true. That is
I
true.
think in the original source material, I think they're housemates.
It sounded like they were like in the same like apartment kind of building from what I read it very quickly again recently. So they lived in the same domicile. I don't know if it was a house per se or if it was like a boarding house more to the point where they had separate rooms, like apartment rooms, So
Right.
I do recommend people go online. You can find it on YouTube. There are multiple audio recordings of either like Vincent Price or Christopher Lee reading Poe, and Christopher Lee does this one. I listened to it a bit ago, and he does a magnificent job as only his voice could have.
yeah, much
So
more
if you want,
worthwhile than watching this. Though this is free on
it
YouTube
is,
as well.
yes.
So it doesn't cost you anything, but one, it's not a great production. I mean, it's 1934 for one, but two, that nobody's done anything to make it more visibly appealing, over
Yeah.
current. Yeah. So it's kind of grainy and blaggy and laggy and weird, but it's free. It's only about like
It
an hour.
is free. I just keep thinking like there were films that we watched that were made in the 1920s that were better quality than this one,
Yeah.
which makes me a little sad. Because it's like they went backwards in production.
I have a feeling
Yeah.
this was a low budget one.
Oh, I'm sure
I'm
it was.
sure. I think it was what Fox British Pictures UK, and I think they did
It
a
was a
series of
UK production. I don't remember who the production house is.
I think they did a series of these, and like I think they were like released for TV eventually, but
Yeah, the old
probably
guy
nobody
actually
will watch them.
died like the year after it came out.
Oh, pity. Yeah, so I don't know. There's not really much to say about this movie. It's
No.
other than it's fairly true to the story, and the guy's face is very emotive, but generally it sucks.
I I actually just found a single interesting piece of trivia on it. It was a made for TV movie.
Oh, really?
It
The
did eventually get released in film in the US, but it was made for British broadcasting. So it was actually made for television. They
the
made a series of them, over 200 titles that were made this way. But they were not maintained because if you know anything about BBC, they were not good about keeping their stuff safe, which is why you can't get any like early Doctor Who is all gone. They did not maintain their stuff well. So if it was there, not all of it is well maintained. So the fact that we even have this is actually kind of miraculous.
I am a little bit surprised. The 1934 version?
Yeah,
That sounds weird.
that's what it said. Maybe
Huh.
they're lying, but it's the 1934 version.
Because I did not particularly. I thought TV came out later, 40s. Or
Maybe. Or maybe it was made and then never produced and then put on TV. That could be it too. Um,
Realistically.
Blattner
But yeah.
Studio is who made it.
Yeah, apparently there was TV in the 30s.
Okay.
It
I
was
can
relatively
imagine.
rich people, but obviously,
Well,
but
yeah. It would be way out of the norm for any household other than super
and
rich.
apparently it hit the States earlier than most places. So I think even
Okay.
before 30.
Hmm.
Okay, when did they start using television? It was first successfully demonstrated in San Francisco 27. So,
That feels way early, but I mean, I'm not
well,
Well,
that's just saying it was first demonstrated, so it didn't,
right demonstrated.
yeah,
versus
I'd
actually
imagine
being used.
commercial viability. Wow.
Here we go.
Strange.
Okay, well,
There
anything else
is
on
a
the
there's a museum of early television in Hilliard. I may have to make an appointment to go some Saturday because now I'm curious.
be a fun
Yeah.
outing for us.
Again, it is IMDb, so IMDb, anyone can add anything to it. So it could be
Yeah.
a bunch of lie.
It's true. It could be, but it also could be feasible because, as we determined, there were TVs in 30, so for rich people, so it's possible this one 34 had it. So yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
All right.
That's
Anything else on 34?
nope.
No.
It sucks. Don't watch it.
Or watch it, it's free, but
I was gonna say
Yeah.
it's free. It's just boring. How a movie about a murder could be boring, it's really boring.
there you go. If you're bored one day and you want to be more bored, perhaps you need to sleep. Hop on YouTube, watch the 1934 version of the Telltale. And then when you're done with that, you can be mad at us about it. Whatever, but we warned you. So the
Hey, we
next one
told
we
you it was
watched,
bad.
yeah, we told you, we warned you, yeah. The next one we watched was the 1960 Telltale Heart.
Yes, it was
Um,
60.
yeah, and I just looked it up to double check because I couldn't remember. I knew it was in the 60s, but it is actually 1960. There we go. According to Google, which Google can lie. It is also free. You can find it like on Tubi and other places. So again, you won't have to pay money for it.
Thank
And you
God.
shouldn't. And you shouldn't. Again, not any standout people. The director was Ernest Morris, somebody whom I'm not familiar with. Maybe Betsy or Rebecca can tell you more.
Nope.
Nope, I sure
And
can't.
like
Nope.
the staff, not super thrilling either. Like again, a bunch of names that I'm not familiar with, which doesn't mean they weren't famous or aren't famous. It never really came across them again. In most of my stuff. Maybe they're in other things that I just didn't notice. Possibly.
I mean, it's entirely possible that some of these people were like bit actors and things, but none of them look familiar to me at all.
No.
Um,
Likewise.
Now who played Carl looked a little bit familiar, but
Could be just in a generic kind of way too.
yeah, his name was Dermot Walsh, if that means anything to anybody.
Nope.
The main character was played by Lawrence Payne, and it is not true to the book at all. It goes a very different angle, which interestingly enough, I think that is the angle that I used to think was the Poe tale. Because I think remakes have often used this angle as well. And in this version, basically, it's a guy gets jealous because he's courting a woman and she ends up falling for somebody. Well, in this movie, she ends up falling for his best friend and they have an affair behind the main character's back. And the main character finds out and kills his friend and buries him under the floorboards.
I I will say the main character, the actor playing the main character, did a good job of being utterly slimy and creepy.
Oh, yeah. Excellent creep factor there. Totally. And it's awful. So yeah, basically sits in his bedroom in the dark and looks out the window and he sees this woman arrive at night and she lives in a boarding house across the street and he can see into her window when she undresses and everything and like kind of gets obsessed with her, takes her on a date and then tries to kind of force himself on her. And for reasons I don't understand, the girl continues to go on a date with him and he behaves for that.
Most of the time, there were still a few more episodes.
Yeah, there was a time or two where he tries again, but
Yeah.
he was never as pushy as the first time, where he
no.
like, and it doesn't make it better. I'm just clarifying for
Yeah,
weird
yeah.
reasons.
Yeah, no.
Um,
he still absolutely girlfriend zoned this girl, for no apparent reason, because she shows minimal interest in him. She's polite.
Neutral, polite at best.
Yeah,
Um,
like,
It's clear it's pity on her part.
yeah,
yes.
I didn't see
And it's
that.
also clear when she meets the best friend, whose name is Carl, I believe, that she's totally interested in him. And you'd have to be like, I am not good at reading social. And like, it was so clearly communicated, these two were like, yep, spark and boom, boom, boom. You know, like,
Yeah,
it was, you know what I mean? There was
Like,
no missing it.
yeah.
immediately. She touched him far too much.
Hmm.
Oh, and it's just, oh, join us. Oh, yes, come sit. Yeah, no.
Yeah, she showed enthusiasm to him. She showed blankness to the main character.
And well, she should, because he had a fabulous mustache. I'm just saying.
It could have been that.
It was the mustache, obviously, not the creep factor at all. The mustache.
Sorry, my dog is very much wanting to like destroy my setup right now because he's just not getting enough attention.
This
Very
this
similar creep factor here, but he's a dog and he's cute, so it matters less.
has been trying to get in the room. I look over and I see, like, his paw up to the elbow, reaching through the door.
but yeah, so this okay, one, and it is a little confusing. So the movie starts out, this guy wakes up from a nightmare and his housemate, and I think his butler,
Yeah.
who is the Carl character, sort of, come in and they call him Mr. Poe, and it's Edgar Poe. And he's like, I'm fine, I'm fine. And then he sits in the chair, and it looks like perhaps maybe he goes back to sleep. You don't know, but the next thing you know, you're in this next thing, and it's now Edgar Marsh. And the Carl guy is not living in the house and not the butler, but he's still a friend. So there's a lot of continuity things. So I think it was supposed to maybe be like a fever dream of Edgar Allan Poe's with the whole murder thing, and then he was supposed to wake up and then it foreshadowed events that were maybe going to come. I don't know, but it was not well done.
No, no. It, because I got that too, because then at the end, like, he wakes up and then the butler's back, and then then he looks over and he's played that game of chess, like, because he plays a game of chess with himself, at one point, and then he loses to himself, I think.
He does.
And then he freaks out about losing to himself. But then at the end, you're like, "Ooh, it's supposed to be a dream, but was it a dream?" Um,
Exactly. And that's the way I
mm,
interpreted it as well. That they were attempting a sort of mind twist at the end to
and
get
they
people to
Mhm.
question.
Well,
failed.
and yeah, because well, in the dream you have like again, like I think in the non-dream sequence the guy was Edgar Poe, in the dream sequence he was Edgar Marsh. Um, in the non-dream sequence, Carl was like a butler manservant kind of live-in person. And in the non-dream, so in the dream sequence, he was a best friend who'd never been in that upstairs region of the house before and was dead. But you know, we could live. So it's just very. And then like he wakes up and like the fun thing at the end is supposed to be like he looks out his window and then there's a girl and being dropped off at the boarding house that looks very similar to the girl that he was courting in the dream
Yes.
as Edgar Marsh versus Edgar Poe. So yeah, it's very convoluted, and I don't know if they meant it to be convoluted, but if they did, it wasn't done in a way where you feel like it was useful. You know, it wasn't one of those convoluted, confusing things where it's making you think. It's more making you go, "Well, that was fucking stupid. What the hell were they doing?"
I
So,
think a good thing is they're trying with this movie, but they're just not making it in the execution.
like, I think the IMDb trivia on this one, and again, back to the point where anybody can write it. The person who wrote it actually thought that them calling them Poe in the beginning was a mistake that they just didn't go back and edit out.
Mm.
Did yours have the weird, like, this film has might be painful for people of a sensitive nature, so if you hear the music do this, avert your eyes? Did yours have that?
Yes,
And I
it
was
Yeah.
like,
did.
there was no point in this film. One, that stupid heartbeat went through the whole stupid film, basically. So you would have had to keep your eyes closed the whole time, which maybe would have made it a better film. Um, but I'm like, There's nothing scary about this film except the way that he treats this girl.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Fact that you can
right.
see even in 1960, sexual assault was on the rise. And the cops disregard a woman when she comes in and says, something is wrong. I think something happened to this guy. And they're like,
Oh no,
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 no, honey, he
no.
just threw you
Yeah.
over. I'm
Right.
sorry, little slut, but he's leaving you.
Yeah, I'm sorry that you had sex with him and then he doesn't like you anymore. Mwah, wah, wah.
Yeah. You're just imagining things. Pat
Like,
pat, go home.
like, honey, I'm
Personally,
sorry to be the one to tell you, but he ghosted you. That's what the cops are doing. No one
Pretty much.
womanized him. He's done this before. The worst part is, though, they made it sound like women have come to them before and be like, I think there's something wrong with him because the guy did actually do that. So that was 1960s ghosting. Well, it was set in like the 1800s, so the 1800s ghosting.
right? My favorite part of this particular film, though, was when he dug the guy up, ripped his heart out, took the heart, and put it in the backyard. And came back in his house and thought everything was going to be fine because it was really beating.
Under like a divot of grass. But like
Yes,
a golf
Yeah,
club being
like,
knocked out.
and like I kept hearing a dog in the background. I thought this dog's gonna dig it up and run
I was
around
going
with
to say,
it.
he's going
That's
to eat
that's
that
what I
heart.
expected to see. I was like, dude, you're gonna have a strayer in your backyard going, hey, what's this? Yeah.
They missed a chance to have the police show up and there be like a cat with the heart hanging out of its mouth or something. Very Edgar Allan Poe.
Would have made it for a better movie too, but no,
Oh,
they didn't do that.
absolutely.
They did not do that at all. But they did do this weird thing where the guy's like, "Oh, you're not gonna be able to figure it out," but he keeps hearing the thud, the thud, the thud, bump, bump of the heart, and then it
Yeah.
breaks down, and then
He's here beneath the floorboards, etc., blah blah blah. Yeah.
but yeah, just again, just not great acting, I'd say. Than the 34 version, and not great
Yeah,
acting.
not great.
At
It
least there
still
was
was,
more acting than the 1934 film.
Yeah,
that is
There
true.
was
they use their
dialogue.
words. I mean,
Yeah.
One point I think in the 1934, just to tell you how good the words were, I am almost positive that he says something to the woman and the woman goes, "Yeah, okay," and walks away. Like, yeah, okay. But it was something like that flippant. Like she's just like, uh-huh. And then she was gone and you never saw her again.
done.
Well, God knows she didn't have any point in the movie.
No,
They just wanted a woman in there.
Yes.
They're like, you know what? We can't just have a film with this one ugly guy and that other guy. So we're going to have to put a woman in here somewhere.
Put
So they just
put a
gave him a
girl in there
random,
so we can get some of the female audience to show up.
so they could get some of the male audience to show up.
so they get any audience.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so I don't know, not a lot of value in the 1960s one either. Again, free.
Yeah.
And I, like I said, I'm pretty sure that most of the remakes kind of follow the vein of the sexual conflict for the reason of the murder versus the guy has a creepy eye. Um, which outside of Poe does make for a better plot, but Poe being Poe, you can totally see him being,
I was
creepy
gonna
eye
say,
dude.
but it's Poe, and Poe's like, I don't think you understand how creepy this guy's eye was. I
It's
need you.
the mental obsession, I think, is what Poe is
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. So
yeah, I guess whoever like went to move it to this type of view was like, I can't understand being obsessed over a creepy eye, but I can be obsessed over a girl for sure. That's not a problem. So there you go.
I mean, to a degree, I understand. Like,
mhm.
I also think that it just gave you more material to work with because there's
Yes.
only so much time you can spend with a guy looking at another guy being like, that guy's eyeball is creepy and I don't like it.
They had to pad it out somehow to actually make a feature length film.
True.
And
Which is why there's so
jealousy
many
is-
shorts out there because they were probably trying to stay true to it. And again, like you pointed out, there's only so long you can extend out the suspense of the that's an icky eye.
Wow, that's a really creepy eye. I really hate it.
I'm gonna creep closer.
I'm gonna
Gonna
kill
creep
that
closer.
guy.
So, a neat modern version might be a zit that you're staring at as a said it's ready to pop. You can just here, here.
Or
Sorry.
you just accidentally hit them where it is.
Let me get that. Still, or I will choke you so I can that zit on your board. No, sorry. All right.
Hold it down. But yeah,
All right.
honestly, both of those films are they're nothing. They're
No.
fine.
Yeah.
They exist.
They're not the worst things I've ever watched. They're not good.
We've seen worse, and we've seen worse on this podcast, but these are definitely not anything I would make a point to go watch.
No, I will
There's
never watch
no,
them again.
like, I mean, some of the bad movies that we've watched, there's a little bit of cultural relevance, so you'd watch it, but there's not even that in these.
No, it's not
Yeah.
even like, hey, this one actor is really, really good or whatever. This performance was
Yeah.
exceptional. There's not even that in this. It's
No.
really genuinely boring.
And there's nobody who's particularly hot either. So there's nothing that you're like,
No,
oh my God. I
No.
mean, it sucks, but dude is hot. No. Or
No.
girl is
I
hot.
mean,
They're mediocre looking average people. And there's nothing wrong with that, but they are also mediocre average acting people. I mean, I could
yeah.
probably have done any of those roles just as successfully as they did, and that's not a compliment to me. It's not me bragging about my acting skills. Let's put it that
right.
way.
This is not bragging about our acting skills. This is saying that with what I am coming to the table with, I still probably could have performed it.
Oh yeah. I
So,
have faith. They could knock it
I
out
mean,
of the park compared to these guys.
yeah, I mean, unless you just really want to get your Poe in and you want to see something more true to the source and then something totally not true to the source for free,
Yeah.
there you go. Um,
Yeah, at
If
least
you're
I didn't
going,
pay for these.
yeah, if you like to say that I'm going to watch every movie about this Poe story that there is, well, they're there. We warned you. We
those are
told
pretty
you.
We sure did.
But let's move on to an excellent modern remake.
Yes.
So, yeah,
Palate
Netflix
cleanser.
series Follow the House of Usher continues to perform. So now we're on the Telltale Heart, and we're on Victorine's story and the heart mesh, and yeah. So again, not true to the source material, no, but damn, it's well done.
I was
Oh,
gonna
very
say,
much so.
but it's such a good homage to the source material.
Yeah.
And the horror is really there. Like, it really, really is. Like,
I think more so than some of the other episodes.
yeah, this one is pretty dark, like, and bleak, like,
Yeah.
for real. Um, yeah, I loved it, but man, this one gets down and dirty in the hole with Victorine and her wife, girlfriend, partner.
Whatever, yeah.
Yeah, it's
I,
heartbreaking,
I,
It
ironically.
is heartbreaking.
it
This
is.
one broke me a little because I actually I like the character of Victorine. I thought she was a really interesting character, and I can see where like part of her character is that she's just really trying very hard to earn her father's acceptance and approval and also get the money for her funding because she wants to do good things. She really wants to do good things.
Yeah.
But she just can't see that the way that they're doing it is wrong.
Vastly wrong. Yeah, when her partner doctor is like realizes that her name was falsified on reports, like I could feel that personally. Like I'm a scientist, and my signature, on something means I agree with it. And scientific ethics are super important to when you're involved in that field. I would imagine extremely so as a doctor wanting to try human trials. At least I hope so. Let me put it that
Which
way.
is an ironic tie back to the arching story of the Usher family, where they had discovered that Roderick Usher, they had forged his name back in the Fortunato days before they took
Yeah.
over the company on trials and consent forms for those medications and stuff. And here's Victorine enacting the same thing. Of course, she probably has no idea about her dad's past. And
Right.
then you added in, like, that whole scene in the bar after the funeral of the younger three children. She's there with her older siblings, the two legitimate siblings, right? And at first, she's trying to be like, okay, we're together. What are we doing? We've got to bond closer. And she realizes quickly, because her siblings make it very clear, especially Tam, that they're never going to accept her.
Yeah.
She's still a bastard. And so you get the unique position of Victorine where she was not accepted by the younger three bastards and not accepted by the legit children. So she was kind of in a unique place of her own, which is probably why she was so desperate to get Roderick's affection. And that's like, and she has this whole lovely emotive scene, and lovely in the sense that she did it so well, about how, they had to fight for scraps at the table. And that, like, as soon as they showed up on the doorstep, that it was, you know, a competition.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Sparks, stop.
So,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's very clear that there's the invisible wall between the legitimate and the non-legitimate
Mhm.
children in this one. So,
Yeah, she
and
felt that, they had to earn their place, but the other children did not because they were
yeah,
just had the place.
and honestly, I think even between the bio or the not bio children, the legitimate ones, I think you're even still seeing a lot of fracturing.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
And I think that comes from like who they call Froderick, that he was the heir apparent because he was male. And I think that Tam resents that because she knows she's the smarter person. Because she also knows that of Roderick and his sister, that she's the smarter person of them too.
Yeah,
She's the one
Madeline.
who holds everything together. Yeah, Madeline's the one who holds it all together.
Yes.
She's the one who like controls things. And that's when they say something and they were like, why is daddy doing this to us? And she goes, that's Aunt Madeline. That's not dad. And I'm like, yeah, she knows. She knows who's running it really in the background. She knows what's really going on. And I think that there is a lot of resentment between her and Frederick because he became the heir apparent, even though she felt like she probably should have been it. And honestly, probably she should have been. From what we see of Frederick, he cannot hold his shit together.
or
He's
it doesn't
no,
seem like he has the same stake, like where everybody else has something they're doing. Frederick just seems like the go-to errand boy.
he
He is.
just stepped into the position. He got a spot at Daddy's company, and because of nepotism, he's up to the top. Whether or
I mean,
not
that's
he's the
it.
best suited for it or not.
And it he's still very dependent on his father to make the decisions, the big decisions,
Yeah.
rather than him making them. Because that's when everything goes down with Perry earlier. And he's like, if you'd have just done what you were supposed to do and gotten rid of those buildings, he would never have been there or known about
Yeah.
them. And that was because Frederick didn't want to make any big decisions. And his father's like, I let you make one decision and you didn't even make it. You just sat on it until it was too late.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
he's not competent.
Yeah, he's just there.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and well, if you look at today's election,
Oh boy.
you see a parallel where there's somebody who's just a man with money that he
Yeah.
inherited, and people attribute more to that person than is remotely
Mm-hmm.
sensible.
Yes.
So yeah, it's still alive and well. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Um. Yeah. So like, yeah, like I really, Camille and Victorine were kind of my two favorites, honestly. And
Camille was mine.
and I always thought that if they had like paired up, they could have taken over really. But that wasn't going to happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, so in this episode it's really it's tragic. So you see where Victorine goes from like, well, you see she always had it there where she's trying to prove herself to dad, but you could also see that there was like kind of a feeling behind it where this was a revolutionary thing, this heart mesh, and it would be, even, in reality, if they ever came up with something like that, it would be an amazing scientific forward of medical research to help people's hearts and stuff. Um, and I mean, probably take over the pacemaker. But
Absolutely.
and you have her, I think it's her fiance, but I'm not sure. Maybe she was already partnered with her. I'd have to rewatch to remember. It's been too long, but there's love there for sure. Like Victorine obviously loved her partner,
Oh,
and
absolutely.
and her partner was ethical. She called her out several times. She's like, "You can't use this drug. It's gonna like taint the results. You can't, use adrenaline. That's gonna taint the results, and it's not legitimate." And of course, Victorine wasn't having it because Victorine was wanting to get the results for her dad, who's now super interested in her project. She's super flattered. Now more pressure. Has no idea why her dad's so interested
That
in it.
yeah, that I find interesting that he didn't even share that information with her, who's working on the heart mesh thing. But that's part and parcel again, I think, of who Roderick is. Information is not worth forthcoming.
Though of course he does eventually go to share it with her, but by then,
Yep, too late.
yeah, yeah. So of course we have our lovely Raven who's in there, and she poses herself as basically an ideal candidate, right? She sets herself up to look like the person that they want, that is just going to be perfect for the first human trial. And she can't. So Victorine, that's another place where she fakes her partner's signature on all the documents for this candidate to get the surgery done, and is lying to this person's face. But of course, our Raven knows that she's being lied to. It's a perfect setup. And I love how they did this. So they show the little fight, and then it kind of stops there. And then you have Victorine who's hearing this noise all through everything to a point of like severe distraction. She's having conversations with Roderick. She's having conversations with Madeline, and she can't stay focused because she's hearing this noise. She's destroying her office.
It's like when
And
you're trying to find the beep that turns out to be the smoke alarm.
yeah, pull down the smoke alarm. She's going in the vents. Yeah.
Yeah.
And finally, she's back in her apartment when her dad comes and visits her, right? She has the music blaring, and he's like, "Can you turn it off?" And she's like, "I really don't
Yeah.
want to."
I can't.
And
Nope,
she does,
I sure can't.
Mm-hmm.
and she does, and then her dad hears the noise. You know,
And
and
she's like,
she's
"You
like, "You
hear
can
that?"
hear it? You can hear it?"
Yeah.
And then she remembers what she did.
And he starts to go along and toward the source of the sound, and then yeah, as soon as he said, "What's that smell?" I'm like, "Oh no, oh no!" I knew it was coming.
And then they fill in the details where she had the fight with her partner, and her partner was going to go and rat her out, and she just loses her temper and throws a heavy object and
It
crushes her
hits,
brain.
yeah, it hits her partner like heavily square in the back of the head, near the brainstem, the worst possible places for that kind of thing. So
And decides she's going to try to keep her alive by putting her heart, which, pumping heart doesn't do much for brain death. So, but yeah. And then she stabs herself in the heart in front of her father, who's,
Yep.
but to give Roderick credit, I do believe he was trying to stop her. Like,
I think he
He
was.
he was
Well, he
like,
still needed her. Oh, he still needed
well,
her.
and he also, I mean,
yes,
it was very obvious he was horrified by what was happening. Like,
Yes. I
and once
kind of feel
again,
like that was a redeeming feature in it, that he was horrified from it.
right, he was
Yeah.
not, he, in spite of everything, he was not ready for that at
No.
all.
Yeah,
yeah.
the actor did a really good job in that moment of the portrayal, because you know everything you've seen during his Roderick's talks with Augie, Roderick comes across as, capable, in control, that kind of thing. And in those moments, you see more of his medical frailty and just plain shock and disgust, and more shock, uh, making them a little bit more of a person in that moment.
Mm-hmm. This
Yeah.
just goes right back into that actor, Bruce Greenwood. So Bruce
Mm-hmm.
Greenwood
I think so.
Yes. Yes.
getting pulled in after they had already started to shoot to play this character, and he plays the shit out of this character. I can't imagine anyone else playing the character. He does such a good job.
Mm-hmm.
He
Oh yeah.
plays that rich, kind of privileged,
Amoral.
amoral person. And this one has that moment also for him where we don't understand it 100%, but the moment where he is considering committing suicide.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And he's like, if I was braver,
Oh yeah.
I would
The
just
the
do it.
Yeah, he's that
I would
whole
just
scene in
do
his
it.
office when he's like coming up with different ways where he could do it if he was braver, he should do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. It's like
And
that. Oh no, that'll take too long. No, not this.
Yep. And then he literally calls himself a chicken shit, and then nothing comes of it. But that little like look into his psyche is so telling, and it's beautifully acted, but I'm like, huh, he's starting to unravel. He's starting to unravel.
Mhm.
I think it goes back. You see a little bit more of who he used to be
Hmm.
before he became who he is now. It
Yeah.
goes back to a little bit more of those times when he was still at the bottom of the company, and
Right.
still had ethics.
We also see in this one that Madeline is starting to put together, once again, Madeline, she's smarter than everybody else. Madeline is starting to put together that Verna is there, and she's like, how is this woman? But she's starting to put it together, but she's putting it together wrong.
Wrong.
But she's like, did you fuck her?
Because God knows you stick your dick in anything.
I was gonna say. So she thinks that this is another bastard child coming out of the woodwork, getting revenge on him. Which, knowing what we know about him, isn't
Possible.
100% unlikely.
It's a reasonable theory based
Yeah,
on his pattern of behavior.
right. Based on his track record, it entirely could have happened.
But you gotta wonder because Madeline was there and she made that pact. Did she decide to? I mean, I'm sure neither of them believed it at the time. And, so I guess I can see where her logical mind went. This can't actually be the same woman who has not aged at all. And this is not supernatural, but this could be the same, I mean, again, the whole logical conclusion that Roderick went back, stuck his dick in her. Now it's a bastard. And now this is this woman's child who's been raised on you know, the story of like, okay, my mom gave you power and now I'm gonna take it out back from you or something. Like it would be a very convoluted revenge plot, but
I mean, that's TV, that's movies.
I was
yeah,
gonna
Convoluted
say,
revenge.
but so is a supernatural, rise to power and then sudden fall, right? So
Yeah.
right. Because that's she's like, this woman is there. And they're like, but we know that he committed suicide. We know he jumped off the balcony because his boyfriend was there.
Yeah.
So what are you talking about? And I do like that, like watching them starting to try and put things together is really interesting because there are so many things that we know because we're watching. Um, that it's fun to watch them as they're trying to put the pieces together to figure out exactly what happened.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, the Dopin reveal.
Oh, I knew as soon as he revealed that, I was just shouting, I knew it! I knew it!
Yeah, which was a wonderful revenge plot of his after all that family put him
Yes.
through. And
Yeah. Well,
though legally that would have put him in quite a situation though, when
mhm,
if he stated there was a witness in front of the judge and then there actually wasn't one, would have got
mhm.
him in a bit of trouble.
Yes, more than likely.
But
So,
But I think at this point he didn't care. He was just trying to rip apart their house.
yeah,
oh yeah, yeah, exactly. He was
he's trying
trying
to
to
take
get
him
them to
down.
go fight within each other in the hopes that probably one of them would turn on the family,
I
or
mean, that's
somebody
it.
else would. For sure. Yeah. I mean, it was a reasonable ploy. And like when I say he might get in a bit of trouble, he probably could have worked his way out of it by saying, oh, they out. And then you never have to reveal who the
Exactly. They
witness
bowed
that
out,
didn't
and
exist
because they
was.
were, yeah, and
Yeah.
because,
So,
that we signed agreements, I can't tell you who it was because
yeah.
they don't want to do it anymore. So I had to sign an NDA. Yeah,
Yeah, and even because how he brings up the informant in the courtroom and is perfectly fine with it being struck from the record. He was never wanting to have anyone speak. He was just wanting to rattle the
he's,
Yeah.
ushers.
yeah,
And
he
it
was rattling the
accomplishes
cages.
purpose. Yeah.
Mhm. And that alone could have like spiraled badly without the whole supernatural aspect, if you think about it, because clearly that family was just not trusting each other to begin with. So that
Yeah.
ploy alone would have and did, I think it did contribute to the downfall for sure, because instead of them watching out for each other, they were watching out for who was they were coming
But
after each other.
I don't think even with that, I don't think even with that they would have been looking out for each other. I think they still would have been infighting.
I was going to
Well,
say
right. They never looked out for each other, but they did have a coherent front when it came to the trial.
Got it.
So
yeah, and
sorry, I
this
should have
made them,
made that clear.
Hmm.
yeah, it really split them apart because also they were promised a huge sum of money if they could figure out who
Yeah.
the person
Was
was.
the
So
important.
money always. Yeah. I just like this series so much. They did so many really fun and interesting things with it and seed so many cool things in and
It really helps if you know your Poe. Now, if you know all the stories, because I think you get so much more from it at that point.
Mhm.
yeah.
All the references and whatnot, and
And like the poem that was read at the funeral at the beginning of this episode is an Edgar Allan Poe poem.
yeah.
Yeah, just it's very well done, well thought out series.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I mean,
I do.
even to the point where like they weren't trying to stay exactly true to the source, but they stayed true to the essence of the source,
Oh,
and it worked.
absolutely.
And I think too, generally, when you have like something that has a defined arc, a beginning, a middle, and an end, it can be a lot tighter. They can do a hell of a lot better job with it at that point because you're not trying to endlessly keep something going.
Right.
You're like, here's the line, that's what it is. You have an established framework to work within, I think, at that point.
Yep.
Yeah. But yeah, so I don't know that there's much more to say, but feel free to chime in. But I would just say again, a series well worth watching.
Definitely.
And it's fun to compare to other source material so you can see what the source was when you're looking at it and but yeah, the essence of Poe is definitely in each episode for sure in the
Yeah.
overarching tale. And it's so well done.
It is. It really, really is.
Yeah, I don't particularly have any complaints about it at all.
Even the characters I hate, I love hating them. They're so good to hate.
Yes. Oh my God. Roderick's lemon speech in the beginning.
The whole thing, I was like, that is some powerful shit right there.
Yeah.
He just explained capitalism in a way that makes me mad and also like understand where these people come from in a way
Mm.
that I don't want to know.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just good. Just good.
But damn, I really enjoyed Camille's character.
Right.
And it's
I
sad.
know.
I wanted her to be involved. I wanted her to be one of the later ones that followed.
Yeah, unfortunately,
Yeah. Yeah, timing wise, she had to go earlier because she knew that Victorine
yeah.
was fucking around, and you
I-
know the fail rate. Camille, I think, knew the fail rate, and so therefore she would have had to go one way or another
yeah.
by Verna or by Victorine.
Yeah. Well, you also get hints about what's coming for Tamerlane and
Oh
Broderick.
yeah.
You know, Tamerlane's losing it more. You also find out that the whole family really knows about her and her whores that she has come in. You know, like that becomes very apparent in that bar scene as well. We're like,
Yep.
oh yeah, the hookers. You know, I mean, there's things I share with my siblings, but that's a little much. Don't you
Yeah, there's a lot.
see siblings that would hold some shit over you? It's very weird.
Well, and you wonder if that's like somebody found out by happenstance and then Camille had to do some spin. That's just how everybody knows about it now.
It's quite possible that would make a lot of
Yeah.
sense to the storyline for sure. And then you get Frederick continuing down the path of crazy, in bringing his wife home from the hospital to the rooms, and
Yeah.
you kind of see things are not going to go well there.
Oh no, no, definitely not.
So
No,
get a
no.
little more piece of the past of the Madeline and Roderick, and a little
Especially
more of
when
the just
Roderick,
diabolical cleverness of
yeah.
Madeline.
Especially at one point when Roderick is sitting and he's like staring at a brick wall, and I
Hmm.
forget if he's talking to it or not, but I'm like, oh, I think I know. I was like, oh, I think I'm starting to put some pieces together about what may have happened back in that night. Because it
Yep.
was a very Cask of Amontillado moment.
You know it. And
And they haven't covered that one yet.
Nope.
So
so I definitely watched this episode on Monday, which was
same.
Indigenous Peoples Day or Columbus Day, depending on who you are. And there was no banking that day. So I just had to log on and take a couple trainings. One of the trainings that I took was how to prevent workplace harassment. So as I was watching that episode, I was like, oh, what just happened there between Madeline and the former boss? That was quid pro quo sexual harassment, where I'll
And
give you a job
like,
if you sleep with me.
Yep.
yeah, can we say that that guy also excellent creep factor there? That actor just had it
Yeah.
Oh,
slime down. He oozed, and yeah, bleh.
Mm-hmm.
yeah. I don't like it.
Yeah.
And she handled it well. I mean, considering like she wasn't taking his crap, really. Um, she just like solidly handled it. Like was just sat there and took it in a way that was wild. I don't think I
Yeah,
could do it.
She handled
I
it
don't think
within
so.
the time frame within the Morgues of that time.
Right. She
Without
Well, I
just
think she handled
overtly.
it in the way she thought was best to continue her plot. Because remember,
right.
this is Madeline, so
Yeah, yeah,
you knew
she's
she could have
calculated.
taken him down to nothing if she wanted to. She
Mm-hmm.
chose not to, and not to save a job, because you heard in other episodes how she just walked away from work and jobs because she wasn't treated well. You get the reveal when she's back in the kitchen with Annabelle Lee and Roderick telling the story, that she was there assessing him.
Oh
So
yeah.
she wasn't trying to start anything. She's assessing him, and at this point that she's probably already has that plan in her mind about how she's going
Mm-hmm.
to take him down.
Yeah,
So
Truth.
she's holding her cards.
it wasn't
Yeah,
really a
she is.
sales pitch. It was a first engagement with the enemy.
Yeah.
Yes.
It was a scouting mission.
So
Yeah, she's
yeah.
like,
Yeah.
So though, even though you're right, Rebecca, obviously that at that point in time there isn't really a way where she could have reported it in any way successfully or anything. She would have had to, if she wanted to keep her job, sit there and take it, and or just walk out. But I think with Madeline, you already think she's 5 steps ahead on the chess game. So
I
she
was
was sitting
just gonna
there.
say that
Yeah,
she was several steps ahead already.
oh
yeah.
yeah.
Because he can't tell me she didn't know that that would be how he would behave.
Mhm.
Oh, she knew. Honestly, I think that was kind of a I'm giving you a chance. There's a chance that we won't let you hang for this. Let's see how you handle me. And then he handled her exactly like she thought he was going to. And so she's like, all right, you've hung yourself because anything that happens at this point, that's on you. I
Yeah.
gave you a chance to, you could have been a stand-up guy. You could have taken me up on my offer. You could have done these things, but what you did instead is you did this. And so, all right, well, now you're gonna get what you get
Yeah.
because she's exacting that way.
Yeah. She's very good at letting people hang themselves.
Oh yeah.
Yep. I think we got everything. Anything
Yeah.
else
Oh
we
yeah.
missed on this episode?
Well,
No,
All right.
done everything important.
Tamerlane and her husband end
Oh,
up breaking up by the end of it.
yeah,
Yeah,
she kicks
they're
him out.
separating.
Yeah, she kicks him out. She is very mean to him. Um, and basically is like, please, I chose you. I went to that knowing that I had two guys that I could possibly choose, and the yoga guy annoyed me. So it was you. And now I own your entire business. I own your likeness. I own you. Get out of my house. And to a degree, I'm sure she's correct. But also, like that whole fight made me uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Vastly.
Like,
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, she basically told him, I never really cared about you. You're a product, and that's what this whole marriage is. And you can see that this poor slob actually cared about her.
yeah, he
So,
likes her.
he everything. Like I would say he even loved her. Like the whole thing with the whores and the hook, that was he
That was
had
all
no
her.
interest in doing that, and he actually didn't like it, but he did it for her. And yeah, so you have to really feel sorry for poor Bilt.
I know. He's
A
such a
little bit.
sweet, sweet dumb boy.
You do get the impression he's not the brightest.
No. And you have to admire Tamerlane because, of all reasons to get married, I mean, she had a good one for her. That's what she wanted. But, and the calculation and again, being 5 steps ahead about what you want, how you wanted your end game to go, all there. So you
Mhm.
can see that she's very much like her aunt. Obviously, not on the same level exactly, but damn.
With with
Oh
with
yeah.
some effort, she could be, but she's an
Yeah.
understudy. Let's put
Yeah.
it that way.
And she's trying to do this, kind of on her own because
Hmm.
she doesn't want to have to have the other people to depend on because she's trying to prove herself too. And they're all trying to prove themselves. They're all trying to prove themselves. But she is also trying to prove herself. She's trying to prove that she could do it without anybody's help. Probably the money, but past the money, everything that else that's happened, she's put her hand on so that she makes sure that it's her and she can get all the credit.
And you can also see she's losing it because, it comes out when
Oh yeah.
she's having that argument with Bill and she was talking about seeing Candy, aka Verna the Raven, right? And she's like, "You're walking with her in the park," and like Bill's like, "I was walking with you in the park." So you can just, you realize there's obviously a mental disconnect, and they keep pointing out the fact that she's not sleeping.
Hmm.
So yeah, you know there's a lot going on there.
Oh yeah. I assume she's next.
So
But yeah,
well, there you have it. I think that's
that
pretty
is the
much all
telltale heart.
Telltale Heart.
Yep. All of the hearts of telling.
Yeah.
Just for this episode, I did wear my heart earrings that have little knives that I can stab into them.
Nice. Stabby heart.
Like,
For red eyeshadow.
All right. Well, I guess the sum of this is the 34 and the 1960 Telltale Heart. They're free. If you really want to just get in touch with some Poe, I guess go ahead. But
honestly, no, don't.
Yeah.
If you want to get in touch with some Poe, there are way better things. There's an animated thing called Extraordinary Tales from like the 2000s. Watch that.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah.
fabulous. Watch that instead. Don't even touch this. Don't.
Or as
I
Rebecca
recommend
suggested, the Christopher
the
Lee / Vincent
yes,
Yes.
Price
that's my
readings.
recommendation.
Listen
the
to those.
audio books.
Yeah. Christopher Lee
And
reading
then,
The Raven will make you the happiest person in the world. So just do it.
Mhm.
Yeah. Don't. No.
yeah, there you
Don't.
go. And then you, of course, keep watching The Fall of the House of Usher because if you haven't watched it already, because it's amazing. So there you go.
Yeah. That do. All
Yeah.
right. See you
Thanks
next
for joining
time.
us.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
You have been listening to the Girls Go Schools podcast. You can follow us on Facebook or Instagram at Girls Go Schools Podcast, on Twitter at Girls Ghost Pod. Like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Girls Go Schools Podcast, and find our podcast on your favorite podcatcher.